r/AskReddit. What is the creepiest thing that society accepts as a cultural norm? Advertising. It's pure psychology and they get into your brain and manipulate you without even knowing it. Even creepier, internet ads. Simply because they're of things you typically type or Google search for shudders. People knowing every detail about celebrities' lives. OMG. I saw Ariana Grande tweeting about this earlier, right before I followed her to her car. If you're really lucky, you might end up in her next tweet. Creep #346 thinking I can't see him #Jeepers Creepers. The news, especially the local news. Hey, let's tell you about all the death and tragedies in the city without giving you any actual information. Also reporting after shootings. Child beauty pageants are for who? Exactly. Who enjoys them? And why? The more you really think about it, the less happy you should be. Seriously. I just rewatched Little Miss Sunshine a few hours ago and seeing all those little girls caked in makeup made me feel super uncomfortable. You know those family stickers that people put on the back of their cars? Shows parents, kids, pets, etc. Once my girlfriend was driving down R9 in NJ and saw one that looked strange. She looked closer and saw 2 parents, 4 children, and a dog, but the third child was an angel, and slightly higher than the other children. She felt way too informed about this family. I always act like those are a running tally of who you've hit with your car. Grass lawns. Let me explain. Turf grass is the most common irrigated crop in the US by a factor of 3. Also, per day 4 billion pounds of potable water and 70 million pounds of pesticides on a plant which does nothing but look nice. Edit. Thank you for the gold, stranger. I live in England. The irrigation falls from the sky. The main problem last year was waiting for it to get dry enough to mow it. Snap map on Snapchat. Most people don't turn it off and you can just see where a person is and where they live and the last they were on Snapchat. I read Snapman and then read the rest of your post with fear that a Snapman is some creature that knows where you are and is stalking. The Snapman is watching you right now. Outside. Hashtag. New creepypasta. The Snapman. He stalks people who use Snapchat during the witching hour. She is bullying you because she likes you. I had a girl throw a glass bottle at me in middle school and it gave me a hell of a black eye. I told an adult this story and she was like, "Ooh, she must really like you." Was like, what? I hope not, cause I called the cops on her. Not anymore, but when I was young, Family Feud was hosted by Richard Dawson. And Richard Dawson would go down the line and kiss every woman on the show on the lips. On the lips. Even the underage girls. And he did this season after season. And back then that was somehow acceptable on broadcast television. Child pageants. If the girl is like 16 to 18, fine. Just fine. They're almost young adults. But like 6-year-olds belly dancing on stage with a 2-piece. No. I guess that's an opinionated answer, but it just creeps me out. Edit. Well, thanks for all the replies. Thoroughly enjoying myself seeing this much disgust toward child pageants. I verify. You will make awesome parents. Also, what the bleep bloop is this darko movie everyone is referring to? I'm European and I think it might make people uncomfortable how okay I am with nudity. I think the world would be a better place if nudity stopped being so vilified. Like, we're born naked. Simply being naked doesn't have to be sexual. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it still often is. Even in places it's culturally acceptable, it's generally not true that no one is ever sexually enjoying it. In certain times it's happening. It's like even clothed beaches. The outfits might not be to be sexual. But if it's a crowded beach, there's always people looking around from time to time in a sexual way. What the thing is that people have to accept that something being mildly sexual doesn't have to be a big deal. A lot of people are in denial about the sexual element of certain things. It's alright to be sexually attracted to people, but please don't start masturbating in the bushes by a nudist beach. That's really gross and it happens pretty often. Not allowing elderly people to decide when they want to die. Who the hell wants to live with dementia? Obviously the retirement homes healthcare industry makes trillions off this, which is who shaped our beliefs on the subject in the first place without even realizing it. The difference between a girl wearing a bra and panties in public and a swimsuit is that only one is socially acceptable. The fact that nudity itself is taboo seems weird to me. Sure, being naked all the time isn't plausible, but people freak out about nudity. It's just the human body. It's not that big a deal. Yeah, I can't say I'd want to do it, but on a warm day I think clothing should be optional. But even to take it a step farther, nipples. You can see 99% of a breast, but if nipples/areola show, boom, it's something horrible. Only on women though. Men muscle tits are fine to see. Edit. Highest voted comment is about muscle tits. LOL. Solitary isolation in prisons. You will sit in a box for the next month. I hope you come out of prison totally ready to assimilate back into society. Lunacy. Edit. Now I'm ashamed of the karma I have generated off this post. Well played, Reddit. Shaming people, particularly children, for having certain diseases or needing medical care. Mental health, for example depression, springs to mind, but complex disorders like epilepsy, cystic fibrosis, or even endometriosis invite an appropriate public comment. Patients are told they are lazy, liars, or should just die for being disabled. I worked at a health science hospital center where we had public protesters every time a healthcare issue made the news. It was creepy and felt dangerous, volatile. The fact that two of the biggest selling fictional series of the last decade, Twilight and 50 Shades, both depicted abusive relationships. In the case of Twilight, it's even creepier that the girls reading these books are often at an age where they are extremely impressionable in how they perceive a healthy relationship. Edit. I'm not saying 50 Shades is abusive because of the BDSM. There are plenty of people in the BDSM community who have completely healthy relationships. But when someone ignores safe words, that's not being dominant. That's rape, and no one who's going to say that rape isn't abuse. Also, jinkies. I didn't expect this reaction at all. I didn't realize the can of worms I was opening here, and when I had to go to work I didn't have any idea what I'd come home to. I'm trying to get through most of the comments, good and bad, and thanks a bunch for the Reddit gold. Those lucky poor rabbit feet things on keychains. D. How lucky can they be? The rabbit had 4 of them, and look what happened to him. I had a real one from when I was young. It was soft and cute, but when you held in your hand I would run my fingers over its knuckles and nails and get creeped out that it was once alive. Cutting off part of people's genitals. Yeah, definitely not going to continue that tradition when the time comes. Someone is trying to convince you to cut a portion of your infant son's genitals off. Burden of proof is about as high as it can get. Vague claims about it being more sanitary don't cut it, even if that were true to some extent. So what? To what degree? Shaving your kid's hair off preemptively would probably reduce the danger of contracting lice, but that doesn't seem proportional to the risk. I'm open to hearing reasoning in favor of the practice, but what I've heard so far isn't compelling. A race to losing your virginity. It seriously messes with some people's minds. I think being exposed to porn at a young age gives you inaccurate ideas about sex, and makes what you're talking about more messed up. Trophy hunting. I know a lot of people hate it, but it's widely accepted, and it's horrific that it's still treated like a sport. If it's in the instances where the whole animal is used and you leave no piece unused, sell to someone who will use it, then sure, make a mount or trophy for your hunting efforts. But killing and hacking off what you want and leaving the rest, wasteful, disrespectful, should not be encouraged at all. That's just needless killing. Well, in South Africa, we have this cultural practice called virginity testing, where an old woman will take your female child into the bush, shove her finger into her vagina to see if she's still a virgin, and if so, she, and a bunch of other girls that have undergone the same process, will get to dance topless in front of the chief at the chance of one of them being his bride. I mean, the practice of the act is protected under cultural law, but still, you're letting someone your grandmother's age finger your daughter in the woods. Amazon Alexa and Google Home, those things are always listening, and hear everything you say and do, yet everyone has them, and Spotify was handing them out for free. Each day we get closer to a 1984 situation. I would have to say cemeteries. And on your right you can see our giant field of dead people. I actually took a walk in a cemetery today. It was rather nice. Nobody was around. The scenery is in top-notch shape. It is very quiet. Me and my girlfriend tried to find the oldest gravestone we could. 1871 was the winner. It was an odd thought of thinking that 6 feet underground in any direction there was most certainly a rotting corpse or skeleton. Imagining the thought of being able to see through all the dirt and see rows upon rows of dead bodies was interesting too. All in all though, it was an interesting first, non-sad experience. When I walk through cemeteries like that, I always think about how probably no one has any clue who are under those headstones. And that a mere 100 or 2 years later, we're just taking up space for no reason. That in movies, TV, sexual subject matter is more adult rated than violence. You'd think that people would be more eager to shield their children from violence than sexuality. If anything, edited to add, and swearing. Arbitrary words get censored to shit more than violence too. Not that I think violence in the media is terrible. I just think it's creepy that it's more acceptable than sexuality and swearing. Parents essentially recording a child's entire life from baby to adult on social media. It's disturbing to me how many parents will do this with zero regard for how their child will feel about it later in life. I'm actually so glad I was born a decade before Facebook even existed. I imagine this is going to become more of a mainstream political issue in the next couple of decades, in the form of Gen Z, Greek letter alpha people demanding stronger child privacy rights as they realize their entire lives have been laid bare for all to see. Caring about virginity. Medically, virginity doesn't exist. Nothing changes in your body when you have sex. It makes sense if you think about it. Nothing else in your body works this way. You don't have a gland in your mouth that swells the first time you have Mexican food. You don't have a bone that cracks the first time you high-five someone. Why would you have a thing that changes the first time a penis enters a vagina? But the amount we care whether or not someone has had sex, to the point that we even have a word for it. There is no word for someone who has never swam before. There is no word for someone who has never kissed. But whether someone has had sex is just part of the vocabulary, and in many places is a social or even legal thing. Halloween. We tell children not to go with strangers even when they offer candies, but for one specific night they are on the street going to strangers' places and ask for candies, for some reason. Hitting children. You're supposed to be raising your child and protecting them from harm, and the way to do that is hitting them. And you're a bad parent if you don't batter your child into submission. Worst of all is that we know the effects this has on children, and the damage follows them into adulthood where they beat their own kids, and wives, and anyone who doesn't do what they want. Because they were taught that if someone doesn't act the way you want, the way to handle it is violence. Violence isn't censored, but the human body is.